G'day guys, next up I've got Justin Marks from the Visual Studio team. He's going to walk us through the entire ALM lifecycle, and that's got a lot better in the 2012 release, and it includes now operations. Check it out. G'day guys, I'm here with Justin Marks. How are you, Justin?
How are you doing, Adam?
I'm pretty excited to be interviewing you today because we don't get to have to dive into source control or dive into work item customizations. We get to go around the auxiliary products with you.
That's right.
So no PowerPoints.
Nope.
No.
It's pretty simple today.
No code. No tools.
Nope.
You're going to explain
Just
it to
me.
us. Okay. All right. So what have you been doing in the last 6 months?
So one of the big themes for Visual Studio, as you'll hopefully see in the beta that just got released, is we're really looking at how development teams and their extending resources really can have a true continuous feedback loop. Every step of the way of the product cycle, getting feedback from the right people, whether it be your internal team members or your stakeholders or also your customers at the end of the day. Because one of the big problems we see is that we have this giant cycle of delivering software, and we're getting better and better at getting teams to deliver faster using technologies like Scrum and Agile.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, that's not enough. You also need to deliver your software to your customers as well, not just develop the software. And there's a lot of other pieces to that puzzle, whether it be gathering requirements, understanding those requirements from a customer perspective, delivering software to your operations team. All of those cycles also take time, and we want to make sure that we start reducing that cycle time for the entire product release and give more value at a very rapid cadence to our customers.
Okay, so what I'd like to do, as I said, I'd like to draw this out on paper so people understand the entire life cycle from beginning to end.
Okay.
I've kind of heard you talk about this in the hallways and in little MVP sessions.
Okay.
But I think it'd be just nice to see, the whole cycle from start to finish. So before we've started the project,
Okay.
As we go along to doing the development,
Okay.
throwing it off to the testers and saying, "Can you do some testing?" And I'll ask you a few questions about different teams I know about,
Okay.
and then completing the sprint or trying to put it in production if we're using continuous deployment.
Of course.
And then handing it off to production, or the whole kit and
through the
caboodle.
entire cycle.
All right.
Sure.
Okay. So can you take us through this?
I'm happy to. So this is the nice big continuous feedback loop. So we're just going to go with the old-fashioned circle we have, and there's really 3 phases I like to look at this. So I'm going to kind of draw some dotted lines to show that. The first phase is the definition phase, or define.
So that's when we're talking to the stakeholders and we're asking what do they want.
Exactly.
And they usually explain it wrong, so I do some sketches.
Yep.
And once I've done the sketches, all they want to do is start coding.
Exactly.
And
So yeah, one of the key things we said there is understanding what the customers want, not necessarily what they're asking for, and the best way of doing that we find is with pictures. Pictures speak 1,000 words, we speak in pictures, or it's much easier to comprehend things for pictures. So for our definition, the defining of requirements, one of the things we really like, excuse my handwriting, is our PowerPoint storyboarding.
right.
And this
I love that.
I'm glad. I hope you're using it a lot. And as you see with the beta, we've got a lot of new shapes that are being released with the beta. And we'd love to get more feedback because we still have got some time to do more between now and release. So please continue with that.
I'll give you some feedback right now.
Okay.
I'd like to have a shape store, so when I do a cool shape, I can put it up in the store, and other people can just grab it when they don't have the skills to install a shape.
And actually, it's right on our plans. We
All right.
will be having one of those shipped soon after beta.
Right.
It's going to be through the VS Gallery, and there will be full integration inside of PowerPoint, so
Right.
you can download additional shapes if your search returns no shapes, and bring you right to the gallery and see the shape section there.
Right.
And also we're going to be having a power tool that we're working on right now for the RTM power tool release that allow you to author those shapes as well. So if you decide to build the Adam Kogan brand shapes,
Yes.
you can then go through the power tool to author them in a way that you can make those shareable outside the organization. So we
Right.
definitely care about that scenario, and we'll nail that one for you.
Okay, and the typical person that will get good at this will be a business analyst type thing.
Business analyst,
What do
designers,
they have to have installed on their machine?
PowerPoint.
That's it.
PowerPoint and the power tool, so they can
Right.
actually package it up at the end of the day and put their name in the author field, things like that. But
Right.
it's just PowerPoint. You're not going to be asking people to go into Photoshop and adding things. We're not going to be asking people to go into TFS and do additional work. At the end of the day, the whole concept of PowerPoint storyboarding is it's easy enough for a business analyst to use as part of their day-to-day process.
So can I just confirm that? If I've just installed Office with PowerPoint, I don't get the storyboarding
No,
stuff?
that's true. Yes, you do need to have the business. Sorry, you're correct. We will be having the appropriate SKU for the business analyst, which is the test professional SKU.
Right.
That includes the PowerPoint storyboarding. Obviously, if you
what
have,
does that install?
So,
like a lot of stuff?
Yep, well, not that much stuff. It's not like a Visual Studio that it's got everything in the sun. But the test professional SKU has 3 main pieces of value. One is the PowerPoint storyboarding for business analysts.
Yep.
The second is the test manager set of features. So that includes for testers as well as the business analysts.
So they're kind of like a BA and a tester, which I guess is a good idea. Yes.
Exactly. And depending on the organization,
Yes.
a lot of them share that role. And then the third piece is the feedback scenario, which we can talk about a little bit as well in there.
Okay, cool.
So once we've defined the requirements, the next thing we want to do is we've got a whole bunch of ideas and sketches in our storyboards. We really want to prioritize those so we're doing the right set of work first. And this is
our backlog?
Yep.
And our backlog is what we use today on TFS Preview?
Exactly.
Right.
So the backlog is what allows me, the business analyst, to prioritize that work and have a conversation with my stakeholders and team members to make sure we're in alignment of what the true priorities are. Right. There's one set of priorities, not your view and my view and his view. It's one consecutive list, and TFS is the master of that data.
Okay, all right. That's I love the tool. It is beautiful.
Well, thank you.
One little thing you could do is talk about the big items, like just have a view of just the epics, the big guys.
Absolutely, and you can always customize that.
Yeah, I could write my own.
We have heard that feedback, and we definitely want to go there. I know Greg is working on something to come up with that, so
great.
We'll get there. So I'll draw the next set of our circle here. This is really the development. So at the time we complete our backlog, we're ready to hand it off to the dev team. We have a great task board to help them execute the work, but as part of the development process today, people generally will develop their software and then kind of throw over the wall. It's shippable. You do want to continue to have feedback throughout the process of development as well as a part of that inner sprinting loop. And there's a couple key pieces there that we have worked on. One is our updates for unit testing. This also leads directly into test-driven development, but it also is very, very important to help prevent regressions, especially as we start getting to a continuous deployment type of model. And Peter Provost has done a lot of work. I think you've talked with him already, and you know a bunch about our unit testing frameworks.
So kind of the feedback that you're saying is when I see green, is that what you're referring to?
You want to be seeing green, absolutely.
All right.
In addition to unit testing, that's great for helping prevent regressions and making sure your code is executing appropriately. But there's also the standards and practices inside your organization, both stylistically as well as does the code work the way it's supposed to? Are we going to have problems supporting this long term? And that's where code review is actually a really nice set of tools that we have inside of TFS that give you a first-class experience inside of Visual Studio for actually processing and giving that feedback from a solicitation perspective, as well as how do I handle that and actually incorporate the feedback.
Right. So I noticed you don't have in here the automated functional testing, the coded UI tests.
Yep.
Would that go with here?
It definitely goes inside of this framework as well. That is something more we delivered in Dev 10, so I'm trying to focus on the new value. But absolutely, there's a ton of value inside of Visual Studio for the development cycle.
Got it.
We only have a few minutes. I'm only focusing. And then the third key piece there is exploratory testing. And along the lines of what you were talking about in Dev 10, we delivered a really good suite of testing tools, the Microsoft Test Manager. One of the pieces of feedback we got is that's a little heavyweight for some teams. You have to spend a lot of time building test plans and test cases. Why don't you let me just go in and test the product without having the structure of you must test step A, B, C in this order?
I think the reality is most disciplined teams have gone through these lessons and they've started doing this, but a lot of development is done by just agile teams, and some agile teams don't do anything beyond user stories.
Yeah, that's true.
And so they just want someone to just start testing without defining exactly what to click.
Exploratory testing gets you a lot of the way there. I mean, you still need to install the tool set, namely the test professional SKU to get this, and you need to create a test plan. But you are able to just start testing. You go into Microsoft Test Manager, just click Explore, and up pops this rich tool that will allow you to use whatever applications you want and will collect very rich data. And by that I mean you can get screenshots, you can get video, you can also get IntelliTrace files of whatever application is being tested, and even those action recordings that get you back to your coded UI test. So it's a nice way to bridge the gap between a traditional tester having manual test cases and a developer building those automated tests.
So before I give it to one of, let's just say I'll give it back to the BA and say, go ahead and start testing, see if you're happy. What do I have to have set up for him?
So at that point, what you have to set up is you have to have tools installed. You caught me on that the first time. And then you also have to have a test plan.
Right.
The test plan is where all the data will be routed to inside
Just
TFS.
a test plan.
I mean, you need TFS, obviously, in the back end, but the test plan is the basic piece you need.
Right.
Once you have a test plan, you don't need to be developing test cases. You don't need to be building test settings files or test configurations. The test plan needs to exist so you can actually route the responses from your exploratory testing.
Right.
And then exploratory testing, once you've launched that, will allow you to file bugs.
Yes.
And those will be the rich bugs. Or you'll also be able to create new test cases from that. So let's say you've done 10 different steps interacting with your web application. You can then say new test case, and that will, and you can then say the last 3 steps that I did in my execution are a new test step called test step foo. And that'll then be a new to manual test cases your team can run in the future. And if you have the action recording logged, of course you can automate those steps as well.
So would you say the big benefit of using the exploratory testing is they can just do whatever they want, and if they hit a bug, it will create the iTrace file for the developer?
Absolutely. It's a very actionable bug from a development perspective. So the same value we got from a manual test case with all of the richness there, we've brought to an ad hoc exploratory test case.
Okay. So is it like, can I ask, is it just going to work without even that structure? Can I just say, BA, here's a list of my stories, read them and go through them?
No, we haven't gotten that simplistic yet.
Right.
We definitely have heard that feedback, and we're going to take that feedback after the beta, and we'll start working with that.
Right.
And we know we need to get a little bit better there. This is one step. We originally were very structured for Microsoft Test Manager. We're trying to get more agile, but yep, there's still room to grow.
Can I ask you another scenario? Some teams are using TFS for source control, but they're using a physical task board on the wall, so they're not actually putting any of their work items in TFS. Not because they don't want to, they can't be bothered. They just like the value of,
like the toxicity of actually touching the stickies and moving them on the board.
Okay, so can they use exploratory testing?
They can use it, but there's going to be a little bit of a discrepancy there because all of the artifacts that come out of this are going to end up in TFS. So unless you're using TFS as a bugs database, then you're not going to see the results of this.
But you can easily just write out a task and say, clean up those bugs that have been raised in TFS.
You can do it manually, but I don't know what the tool will give you in that case.
Well, it gives you the iTrace file.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah,
so you would have to come up with a way of magically linking this task is related to this TFS bug, which has this iTrace file. There could be a little bit of an issue.
They can just write the numbers down and put it on the wall, just so they've got the bug ID.
That's true. I mean, if what you care about is IntelliTrace file, this definitely will get you there. One of the other things that we've done is in this release, we've gotten a lot of feedback from customers that we want IntelliTrace in production. And Larry Guger, who's the PM for that, you might have gotten to talk with him a bit. One of the things that they've done is they've released a cab file that allows you to easily deploy that to any machine you want in your organization. Right. And be able to, using PowerShell, script the collection of IntelliTrace from any application, whether it be client-side or server-side, ASP.NET or IIS application. So you can start collection for this MVC app that's running, and it will just go build that file with whatever collection plan that you've defined.
So just to clarify that, say I have a Windows app, the easy one. When I send out the link for exploratory testing, it will start capturing that.
If you're running that locally.
Yes, if I have that locally.
Because the exploratory testing has IntelliTrace as one of the agents, it will just collect from the applications that you launch.
Okay, so that's the easy part. Yep. Now, if I'm asking the BA to test the MVC app, which has a server-side component, that wouldn't work just out of the box.
Correct. You have to then you have to launch the IntelliTrace collector through PowerShell on your MVC hosted server.
So I have to give them do I have to tell them to first remote in, or?
Nope, you don't have to tell them that. You just say, let's say it's server Justin server.
Yes.
I, the BA, as I'm setting up that server, will turn on IntelliTrace collection at the server level. and then I will send to you when, hey, you're going to go do exploratory testing.
The BA is not going to turn on that.
Well, it depends. It depends on the organization.
Right.
Maybe they're doing more than just the traditional BA role. Maybe it's a tester or something.
Okay.
But whoever is setting up the box will turn on IntelliTrace using the cab file. And then when they tell their stakeholders, their business analysts, their testers, this is the setup server, that IntelliTrace file will already be collected on the server. Now, exploratory testing will not snap that log and put it into the bug directly. You'll have to do the stitching of those pieces together.
Right.
If you wanted to do all of the snipping, you have to run exploratory testing on the actual server hosting the bits.
Right, which I think I would do.
Absolutely. In small organizations, that makes sense.
Yeah.
If you're in a larger organization with very big hardware for staging environments, it gets a little bit more tricky, but we do have the tools available to help you out.
Okay, all right, cool, got it.
So at the end of the day, we've done a whole bunch of development here. We've used all of the rich tools to do that.
Yes.
And now we're ready to kind of throw that over the wall because it's some sort of a shippable unit.
To a wider audience, is that what you're saying?
Audience.
Okay.
But generally, traditionally what we do is like, great, we've done sprint,
Yes.
shippable, let's send it off to our operations teams, and we have the last segment of operations. But it's a much better idea to get that feedback early. At the end of sprint 1, I have some deliverable goods there. I really want to go to my marketing, my sales, my vice presidents and stakeholders and get their feedback too. That's an incredibly important part. So right on the hinge of operations and development, you want to be able to get stakeholder feedback. Feedback from stakeholders.
Okay.
And what this is another set of new features that we've enabled for a full end-to-end scenario between the business analyst and the stakeholders. Where again, stakeholders are people outside of your team. So they're not traditionally using TFS. So they don't understand even what the concept of bugs are. They're thinking of much higher level. They don't want to know what's on your backlog. They want to think of, hey, what's changed? Where do I need to direct my attention? So with the feedback scenario, the business analyst can send a simple request to their stakeholder, which gets delivered through email. That will be tracked in TFS at the back end, but you as the stakeholder now get this email with a very easy link which says, hey, here's the button to click to launch your feedback session. And when you click that, assuming the tool is installed, it will just launch this feedback tool which allows you to give rich bugs from a stakeholder as well as from an internal team member. And that email will also have the install link as well. So if you are in an organization that doesn't have it installed already, it wasn't deployed out through SMS or something, you have it right there in the email, the one click you need to do to install it and the one click that you need to launch the tool.
So is this thing click once?
It's not click once, unfortunately.
Well, that's my first suggestion.
I like that suggestion a lot.
Okay.
And we actually have gotten some additional feedback that some organizations don't let you install at all. So we're working at coming up with solutions for that, for the larger organizations, so the Boeings of the world that are very tight-knit in terms of what a deployment or what a development environment, what a person's laptop will look like. We're coming up with answers for that.
Well, that's not actually a scenario I encounter.
Okay.
Yeah, so it doesn't worry me, but I know the big
like
guys.
that.
Yeah. But this guy, it's going to be a rich bug, but not as super rich as
not
this.
As rich as
doesn't have the iTrace file.
Exactly. So you're able to get screenshots. You can have the rich text, and you can also get video and audio clippings very easily from the stakeholder feedback. You don't get the action recordings or the IntelliTrace files. That you need to have one of the test professionals use to get that value.
So if I'm using something free today, such as Jing, from TechSmith, that just allows me to quickly record something or make a screenshot. I'm trying to work out what does this do beyond that.
So the difference is the feedback that comes back here is a TFS work item.
I'll go straight in.
So it goes right into TFS and adds that traceability element. So when I, the BA, get the feedback from Adam, first of all, I actually have a work item to work with, and I can then branch that into new bugs, new user stories, whatever I need. Second of all, you as the stakeholder can also have some oversight on that, because yes, you've really spent your time, you've spent your 10 minutes of your day to give me the feedback. The last thing you want to see is the team ignore it. You want to be able to say, hey, what work items were created from this, and what is the state of those work items? You do get a full end-to-end scenario.
You could do some little graphs on which guys are giving you the most feedback coming in and stuff.
And we have the data going into the cube, so you can actually build those reports as well.
Right. Yeah, I do it a different way today. I use Jing. I have all the emails start coming in, and then you have to go through a couple more steps. So we use Team Companion to drag those emails into TFS.
Exactly. Then you have to upload the attachments, and it's a bit of more work. But
Team Companion is pretty good, but So that's where my triaging process is there, rather than where it could be directly into TFS.
And that's the balance we're trying to have this release. We're trying to get, I mean, we've got testers in Dev 10 and architects. Now we're trying to get business analysts. We're trying to learn what that balance is between email and actually working with TFS.
Great. All right.
So at that point, we've gotten some feedback from our stakeholders. We're shipping. We're using continuous deployment and things to get this to Azure, whatever our release mechanism is. And now the operations team really takes a first-class role in understanding and analyzing the data. And we have two solutions there as well. The first is Preemptive Analytics. And Preemptive Analytics is actually a partner company, Preemptive, out of Cleveland, Ohio, and you might be familiar with them from the Dotfuscator product. But they've actually extended their technology now to move into the analytics space. And the concept here is it's kind of like Watson in a box, Watson being the technology we use internally at Microsoft. The idea here is you can instrument your application before you deploy it to collect exceptions. And anytime an exception occurs, you want that information to go out to some hosted endpoint, whether it be cloud-based or your own internal organization. And then at the end of the day, have that incident actually appear in TFS as a rich piece of information. So I have a phone application. I'm deploying that phone application. You've used that today. If that application crashes for you, I'm completely blind. I don't have any idea that anything went wrong, and you're probably going to start bad-mouthing me on Twitter if I know you well enough. What we really like is that developer to see that exception, not just know that it happened, but also see the full stack of where it happened so they can actually take some action on it. That's exactly what Preemptive gives us. You get the exception instrumentation in your application before deployment, and then you also have the tie-in back to TFS where not only does it create those work items, but it also will aggregate it. So if 10 people are using my app and they all have crashes, I get one work item with 10 counts, as opposed to 10 raw work items that I have to, as a developer, figure out are these the same problem.
So the beauty of this is it almost prioritizes things, because when you can look at which bug am I going to fix, and you now know one that hits a lot of different people, or one that's very noisy but just a small subset of people, you know.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what we have, an internal technology for that inside of Microsoft called Watson, which I alluded to earlier, but that's exactly what we do. We get that nice little graph and we see where the tail is, and we figure out who is going to be most impacted. Those are the ones we would, excuse me, those are the bugs that we need to fix first.
Right.
And they have those reports in the box as well. So you get that data because it's all in the TFS cube. It's very easy to report on that.
So I'm just trying to process this, because you really never get anything for free.
Of course.
So this is putting a lot of instrumentation in my code.
It's minimum instrumentation. It's actually very, very lightweight. You can think of it as an additional web call at the point of, you can think of it as a try-catch block on your entire your service, and then basically a web service call out. And if you actually look at Fiddler, you'll see it's one web service call at the time of the exception. So it's very, very lightweight from that perspective.
So are we talking less than 1% lightweight?
Oh, yes.
Really?
Yeah, it's very, very fast. I mean, it's however long, I mean, we'll see how fast your network is to send that exception. But it is all...
Oh, I don't mind about the exception. I don't mind if that's heavy.
But additionally, we're not doing anything like... It's not like an IntelliTrace where it's collecting lots and lots of information about every function call. It is purely at the time of exception, send a web service call out with the data that's important.
Oh, well, thank you for saying it's not like IntelliTrace.
There's a difference. There's a room for each one.
Right, okay.
Absolutely.
Yes. But I love IntelliTrace, but I couldn't have that running while my app is running because I wouldn't put up with that
performance.
Fair.
That's not what it's designed for. This is much lighter weight. Now, this is a client-side technology. You can use it on the server as well. You're instrumenting your server application. But we also have some great technology from a server side from our operations manager. System Center Operations Manager is one of our key products inside of Microsoft for monitoring. And one of the things they've also built is a TFS connector. And the scenario there is you've got your System Center Operations Manager monitoring your live web application. And sometimes problems occur, an alert comes to the Operations Manager team, and your Operations Engineer uses product knowledge to know, hey, do I have to reboot IIS, or do I have to restart the server, or do I have to go run some specialized scripts? They know how to handle a lot of those types of problems. But there are occasions where they aren't equipped to solve the problem. They need to engage the development team or the engineering team. With the TFS connector, they can very easily assign an alert to engineering, and that will create a TFS work item in the actual engineering team's TFS server and allow them to get the full view of all the information that happened. And with Avocode, which is what ships with Operations Manager, you get a much richer set of information. So you get the stack, you get parameters on the stack for things like SQL exceptions. You'll see which SQL server, what connection string was being used, and you can even tie that directly to the line of code. Now where that differs from, it's a little bit closer to IntelliTrace from its agent side technology that's monitoring it, whereas Preemptive is a client side technology that's just using instrumentation. So here you have an agent running on the server to collect the information, whereas with Preemptive, it's specifically in the application and knows how to handle its own exceptions.
So let me just try to restate my understanding of this last
It gets a little confusing.
So we hand it over to the operations guys who put this thing into production. They run operations manager to look for problems. And today, they just know there was a problem, and the developer has no insight into really what the problem was.
They probably send an email or get on the phone tree and call somebody, but then there's this back and forth, kind of like what we had in the past between developers and testers.
Oh, yes.
So we're trying to make that easy. Give it a simple way of, hey, you know what? Click a button and it gives them that information. You don't need to be you don't need to be collecting IIS logs or event logs and putting this all in email or file shares and getting it over the wall. It's all just a seamless integration between the products.
So when the operations guy rings up the dev guys and say, hey, we've got a problem, they go, yeah, we know, we're already looking at it.
Exactly. It's already on their plate.
Oh, that's nice.
So again, everything, the whole concept of all of these things is reducing the cycle time. At every instance, giving the right people the right information, letting the feedback come into the product team, let the feedback go to the operations team or to the requirements management, your BAs, and giving them the tools to be able to collaborate together. That's what TFS does best.
So can I ask you, of all these things, which is the one that you think is absolutely awesome?
Well, I'm actually pretty impressed with some of the stuff we're doing in the operations space. I
really?
have a background working in MSN operations. I was one of the SOC guys early on my career at Microsoft, getting woken up in the middle of the night like, hey, MSN.com is down, you got to fix it.
Right.
And at the time, working with the operations team, working with the development team was a nightmare.
Right.
We didn't know each other. We didn't have insight into the way the product was built. There was just some immaturity there, which we've fixed. But now we're getting the tools we need where it's just a click of a button. I don't even need to wake up in the middle of the night. Just the first guy that gets the alert sends it off to the engineering team and they just take care of it. It's not like we have to start figuring out what is the root of the problems, have these full retrospectives every single time an event occurs. It's becoming much more mature and the tools are there with us as opposed to something we have to apply to the problem.
Right. And can I ask, what was a painful cut or something you really want to get to?
So there were a lot of things we wanted to do in exploratory testing, making it a little bit easier from the start menu launching switch, just another tool you use. From the feedback scenario, we wanted to do more about tracking and traceability. So it's part of product development. Every step of the way we have little cuts, even with storyboarding, which I'm incredibly proud of what we did. There was a whole bunch of features that we had on our backlog that we would have absolutely loved to get to. But you can only get so much, and hopefully we're getting feedback. How do you like it?
Well, I love it. I'm very impressed. I haven't dug into the operations side, so I found that really insightful.
Cool.
But I'm just very happy we've got exploratory testing, and I think anything that helps getting iTrace files is great. And I already love TFS Preview, and the storyboarding thing is just. I can't believe I like it more than Balsamic, so I'm just shocked.
I love hearing it. I want to get every single person using this to say that. So.
All right. Well, it's been great talking to you and getting this bit of an overview. I can't wait to try it out. Cheers. Before you go, I've got a task for you. Go to tv.ssw.com and subscribe to our newsletter. You'll be informed of all upcoming videos. In addition, if you're super keen, I'm all about inspecting and adapting. So send me an email or send me a tweet @AdamKogan. Cheers.